So, as has been said already by our distinguished guests on the stage this afternoon, we are indeed gathering at a time of unprecedented global challenge and upheaval. Most people would argue that the world is reaching a point of crisis. Like the crisis point of a sick patient, we either break down or we break through. And the evidence of the breakdown is all around us. Behind every headline of conflict and war, every climate-fueled disaster, every report of violence and death, of displacement and loss, is a human story of fear, disillusion, overwhelm, and grief. Even our so-called everyday lives are becoming more challenging by the day. It seems like more and more life is happening more and more of the time. The challenges just keep on coming, if not directly to us, then to those around us, our loved ones, our friends, our neighbours, to the world in general. And if you need evidence of the increasing pressures on us all, you need look no further than the breakdown of mental health happening all around, as has already been mentioned. Some are even calling it a global mental health crisis, where anxiety, insecurity, and depression are all on the rise. Under pressure, something has to give. So given this time that we're all living through, the importance of self-care and self-compassion cannot be overstated. Emotional self-care, taking time for the self, creating nourishment for the inner being, finding the point of inner stillness in this turning world. They're all ways of preventing the downward spiral of stress and burnout, and instead discover an upward spiral of well-being and spiritual resilience. We can learn ways to not only survive, but thrive, despite what is going on around us, so that when the next global shockwave comes along, we can be prepared. We can bend to the challenges of change and not be broken by them. We do this for ourselves, but we also do this for others, so we can show up for them with our love, our strength, and our support when they are in need. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Sister Genti has spent her entire adult life being there for others. As a senior Raja Yoga meditation teacher with the Brahma Kumaris for almost 60 years, she has led by example and shone a pure light into the world, a light of inner transformation and outer change, inspiring millions on every continent to take up a spiritual practice to support in this process. For her, a tipping point isn't about tipping into environmental disaster, but one where human consciousness itself tips into a natural state of being, where love, kindness, and compassion become the norm. A state in which we realize our human potential. As well as being the additional administrative head of the Brahma Kumaris, she's also the organization's representative to the United Nations here in Geneva. Sister Genti, a very, very warm welcome to you, and thank you so much for being with us today.
I'd like to begin with a greeting of peace, Om Shanti. Your Excellency, Ambassador Bagachi, Mrs. Drake and Dr. Nakatani, and a special thank you to our Consul General who's here, who has been a very, very leading figure in making all of this happen. perhaps we could begin with just a moment of silence, going on that inner journey. Can you hear me? Okay. So I'll guide us into a meditation so that we begin. I'd like to see everyone. So just sit relaxed. Hatha Yoga will be something we experience tomorrow, but the first step of Raj Yoga is just letting the body be comfortable and relaxed. Taking a journey inwards, coming to the awareness of the inner being, the being who I am. I can feel the light shining within. Each one of us is that inner being, a being filled with goodness, with love, peace, and truth. This is the inherent state of the inner being. I stay in this awareness, connected with the being who I truly am. And the light from this room multiplies as we join together collectively. And the light radiates out not only into the city, but far beyond into the world. Thank you. I know that we've had a very interesting explanation of why we're taking up this subject here today. And this year, I know that health is very much part of the agenda for the International Yoga Day, but in particular, mental health, because that is the pandemic of our times. Several questions have been raised, and Philippa will be sharing those questions.
Thank you very much for bringing us all into this space, Sister Genti, with those lovely words. And we are talking about emotional self-care. And I'd like to begin with an incident that you and I both experienced yesterday, which in a way illustrated what so many of us are going through in our lives, which is when something comes into your life that you really didn't see coming, and it comes from outside of your field of vision, and suddenly it crashes onto your lap and you have to deal with it. Sister Genti and I were traveling in a car together yesterday where we kind of experienced exactly that. Do you want to just say, Sister Genti, what happened and how you coped in that moment?
We were very comfortable sharing exchanges of what had been happening through the day. And then there was a little bit of a quiet time in the car. And I must have been reading something. I looked down, and then suddenly I hear this big sound, and there's been an impact. And I see the windscreen. I was sitting in the front passenger seat, and the whole windscreen has been shattered. And there's a horse that's running wild. It sounds like, opera, soap opera. It's not something that would happen in a normal situation. And the driver calmly moves across and comes to a standstill by the side. And the horse is gone. And another car comes up, and a woman says, but the driver must have fallen off somewhere. And the rider, and she goes off, and apparently there was a riding school just a few minutes away from where we were, and so she went to find out what was happening there. And it seems that the horse was not in a good mental state, That's a strange thing to say, but apparently the history is that he had been beaten by his previous owner, and the riding school had taken him in to support him in his healing. And meanwhile, a very young girl comes up and she's a little bit distraught and is saying, "What happened? Where is the horse?" And she was a bit disheveled, and she had been riding and had fallen off the horse. The horse had actually shaken her off, and he then moved very quickly away into the path of the car and then headed off to the school. It sounds totally strange, but it is, as Philippa said, an unexpected situation that landed in our laps, and all of us in the car were meditators, so I don't think there was anyone who panicked, but the little girl was really panicking. But we calmed her down, but also she went off to the riding school. And we did all the things we needed to do, call the police, call the insurance company, and so on. And when the police came, they did what they needed to do. But it was really interesting because each and every one of us was absolutely calm, doing what needed to happen. And I didn't need to do anything except just send lots of loving good wishes. And finally, it turned out that the horse had to be taken. The horse had a wound. None of us were hit. The glass was all around me in the car in the front seat. But I came out very easily, and it took a long time. But we just had to be very, very calm and stable and help the girl calm down. But also, then we understood what the whole background was. So it's a fact that you really don't know what's going to happen next moment. And when the recovery guy came, he looked at the car and said, "It's a write-off." But that's okay. The driver, the owner, was also a meditator, and so was very calm. And we managed to get to the retreat place by calling a taxi company. And next morning, we were up for our meditation and also our morning class. We heard that the horse was okay, he was running. But yes, he was taken to the hospital, to the animal hospital, to get the wound stitched up because there was still blood coming. The girl was okay. Her mother had come and she had calmed down. So just an example of how in any situation, if I stay calm, others also stay calm. And even if perhaps they hadn't been, but the collective energy of all of us made sure that everything was very calm and things got resolved in the way that they should, with a lot of peace. And the most surprising thing was that Isnel, the coordinator of our Geneva Center, was of course with us. And the policewoman, there was a policeman and a policewoman, both had come. And the policewoman had been kicked by the horse, when she'd gone across to the riding school to see what was going on. The horse had kicked her. The horse was still in trauma, but she was fine. And she had a bit of pain, but we helped her with some homeopathy, and she was okay. But also, she became very, very interested in finding out about meditation, because how come all of us were calm when this strange situation had taken place? So we thought that we'd share this incident with you, just as a reminder that sudden incidents don't happen far away, in Ukraine and Israel and other places, but sudden incidents can happen absolutely in your own neighborhood, wherever it is you are. And whatever are your inner resources kick in at that time. And at that moment, the most important thing is to try this exercise that we were sharing a little while ago, just coming back here to the awareness of the inner being, and that each and every one of us is that shining light, the light of goodness, love, and truth. And if this mantra is not a mantra in the sense of chanting something, but it is a sacred space in which one can enter and experience the inner being. And if I can do that, and if we can share these concepts, then I think the world would be a very different place.
Thank you, Sister Genti. You didn't mention that the horse completely landed on the bonnet of the car right in front of your face. And it was quite something to witness, the absolute calm in the car after the incident. But of course, people are going through different things all the time. As was mentioned earlier, we've been hearing about layoffs here at the UN. We have people getting ill. We have people dying suddenly. There's a lot of suffering and sorrow in the world at this time. And people respond in different ways, either with going into fear, sometimes into anger and being called to protest, sometimes into depression and just giving up altogether. How do we take a closer look at our own emotional state when we are in the crux of an absolute emergency situation or a challenging situation to our emotions? How do we moderate those moments?
With everything that we do in the world, we know that you have to first understand something, and then you have to practice it, rehearse it, and then you're going to be able to use it in the best way possible. Nothing happens just by chance, just like this, in terms of our emotional response to something. But just as with anything else, there's a training process. And so firstly, the awareness that it's my own thoughts that create my feelings and my emotions. And is there a training I can have to be able to move my thoughts in the direction that I would like them to go in? And most times we would say, well, thoughts are coming to me from all the things that are going on out there. But yet, in fact, two people can be in the same place and a situation happens. One will respond in one way, another will respond very differently. So it's not just the external stimulus. There is definitely something that's going on inside that's been triggered that is causing the response, the reaction. And so I think if we can have a little bit of time in which we look at what's going on inside and just do a self-audit. If at the end of the day, I look at myself and ask, well, could I have done something differently? Probably in that calm state at night, whatever the situation may have been, you'll be able to find that there were alternative ways in which you could have handled things more peacefully, more calmly, with perhaps greater love, greater compassion. And that self-audit is what then allows me to go on that inner journey, recognizing that I need to do something about my own inner state of awareness. Because mental health doesn't begin with a crisis and then trying to find medicine for it or counseling for it, but it actually can be stopped much earlier. Mrs. Drake spoke very beautifully about the self-care that's needed and the initiatives that ILO have in place for all the things that are being taken to take care of mental well-being, and I applaud those. My own inner awareness is what can help me create that powerful state in which I know that whatever may happen, my response will come from a place of goodness and not anger or greed or ego or attachments. These are the normal reactions of the world today. And that's because the energy level of the world has been gradually declining. And today we're seeing huge, massive forms of ego on display and anger and all the other negative forces. But it's possible for me not to be influenced by all this negativity and be part of the ascending energy, the energy of belief in values, a desire to return to values which are the core values of the human spirit, looking at things from a holistic perspective rather than a narrow tunnel of just materialism and consumerism. So if I can start looking at these factors, Self-care begins with myself looking inwards. And when I start going on that inner journey, then I realize that it is possible to take charge of my own mind. We practice what's called Raj Yoga, and it's a very lovely term. Yoga means connection, union, connectivity. It means communion, communication. So yoga is at the heart of many things. But there's also the word Raja, the king, the leader, the highest, the supreme. And Raj Yoga is the practice of meditation in which the soul, the inner being, is connecting with the divine so that we're able to draw from that infinite source and be able to build up our own resources. You know, if you test a wire, it's an experiment that I think some of you would have done in the physics lab when you were age 12 maybe. But what is the stress factor of that metallic wire? And what is the stress load that you're putting on that wire? And you're able to find the stress point at which it can no longer cope and it's not able to return to its original form. And so you do either one of two things. You start removing the weight or you start reinforcing the strength of the wire. Can we remove all the problems of the world? Yes, we can, but not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But together, collectively, collaboratively, I believe that yes, humans have created the situation and it's possible for humans to transform the situation also with help from above. But yes, it's definitely possible. And we can do this firstly just for ourselves. Can I reinforce my own inner capacity? So just as you have capacity building in so many other areas of human expertise, this is also very important, capacity building for the spirit, for the being within. And if I spend a little bit of time each day practicing this awareness of who I truly am and connecting with the inner being and the one above, I'm going to be able to build up my reservoir of peace, of tolerance, of compassion, of truth. And when it comes to the rubber hitting the road, literally yesterday, you're able to cope with it differently. I'm sure that 20 years ago, 30 years ago, maybe I might have had a bit of upheaval, but today I know that whatever may come, my hope is that my response will be from that space of peace and compassion. And so each one of us can do this for ourselves to build up that inner reservoir.
Individual stress levels. We met with a journalist this morning for an interview, and she made an interesting comment. She said it's very painful to be on the earth at this moment. And I think that's a sentiment that many people would recognize, faced with the level of suffering and sorrow in the world. How do we begin to cope with that? We don't want to normalize it. We don't want to turn away and pretend it's not happening. And yet living with that day to day sometimes feels like a burden more than we can cope with. How would you advise someone who's really feeling they can't do this, it's too much?
It begins with me, and what I can do is to start this journey of going within. Sometimes we use this word detachment and we don't fully understand it. It's not detaching from other human beings and their condition. It's not detaching from the state of the world, but rather it's being able to detach from my physical identity, which is based on so many temporary factors. Normally we would think about ourselves in terms of age or gender or nationality or religion or color, property, possessions, position. All of these things make up our identity. But no, that's not my true identity. My identity is really this inner being that thinks and feels and understands and remembers and has a conscience and also has a personality. That is the being that I am, the inner being. And while I've been caught up with the external identity, which is basically matter, we become highly materialistic, and consumerism has taken over practically everything. And so can I come back to my original state of the inner being and learn to be detached from all the things related to this, all the physical aspects of my identity. And in that awareness of the true being that I am, I'm able to see myself, I'm able to see others from a very different perspective. And in that perspective, yes, I know that my own feelings reach others. And if I can develop love and compassion, I can help others who are going through sorrow. If I myself don't have that capacity, how can I help anyone else? But if I get influenced by their sorrow to the point where I'm in tears, can I be of help to anyone else? But if I can allow my inner calm to be conveyed to them through my vibrations, through my actions, through my behavior, I can support them in my journey. And Margaret Mead said a long time ago, whenever there's been any positive change in the world, it hasn't happened through a vast majority. It's only ever happened when it's individuals, committed citizens, who come together to try and make a difference. And from that small group of committed individuals, there have been amazing things that have happened. Look at the history of the world in recent times, and you'll see that every positive change has happened just by a small group. And so today, I look at the sorrow of the world, but I know that this gathering, which actually is a very, very powerful gathering, this group of individuals can make a big difference, because whatever it is I do, there's an impact on my family, on my circle of friends, on my community, to my country. And as all those networks come together, we make a difference to the world. And so I'm very pleased that we're celebrating Yoga Day, particularly in terms of health and mental health, because I think that all of us can make a huge difference to ourselves, definitely. But as we come together as a collective, that energy multiplies. And I know for sure that after the dark period, there's always a period of light. Night doesn't go on forever. And whatever is of sorrow and suffering has to come to an end, and a better world can happen. So I hope that today you leave with that vision of hope. For me, it's a certainty, but at least we begin with hope that yes, there are better days ahead, but I can make a personal contribution to making that better world happen.
Very much what you're saying is we're living through a transitional period where we're witnessing suffering, but it's not going to go on forever, is your message. There is hope that the world will eventually wake up and change. And I think many people in this room would be called to action, to doing something about the suffering that they see around them. And I wonder for you, at what point do we get called into taking a step forwards and rolling up our sleeves, maybe fighting for peace, activating and campaigning, but then there can come burnout because we give so much of ourselves, we have nothing left. How do we find that balance point between doing the inner reflection that you're talking about, but also taking a step forward into action?
I'd like to change one word. It's not eventually. I think we're at a cusp. I think we're at a turning point. I can't believe that 10 years ago, such a gathering would have been possible, especially here at the UN. It is happening now, and we're focusing on the spiritual dimension. And I think that I see many, many signs of things moving to that critical point of mass when things will turn around. So I don't want you to think it's going to be eventually sometime unknown. I think that we have it within our capacity to actually make a difference. And within a very short space of time, there is going to be a difference. The other thing that I want to pick up on from your question is, can I ever fight for peace? It doesn't work, does it? But what I can do is allow the power of peace to grow so that it truly becomes a power, because peace is not passive. Peace is active. It's an energy that carries us forward. Whenever there's been huge strides in civilizations, it's been because there's been a peaceful environment that has created that. And so today also, if we decide, I'm going to stay peaceful, no matter what. Now, whether it's my little child who keeps tugging at me and wanting my attention, to what extent do I keep peaceful? It's a test of my peace. If a colleague at work again and again is interrupting what I'm saying, can I stay peaceful and manage that situation with tolerance, with equity, with calmness, equanimity? So we're facing challenges in our own lives in little ways, but it's a marker of what would my response be if somebody really got angry with me. And so little ways teach us the level of tolerance that we have, but having understood that, do I want to increase my own inner capacity of peace and the power of peace? And I think we can all do this. Yes, it's not to say that we sit back and wait for something to happen by magic. What happens is that once you're motivated to bring about inner transformation, there's a tremendous passion and energy you have to do things out there. So, for example, we run several hospitals in India, especially at Mount Abu in a very deprived tribal area. We have what is called India One, which was the first solar thermal power station in India, and now there are many who have followed. But this is a thermal station that was able to store energy and was able then to be converted into electricity that provides lighting for a little township in Abu. So these are models, examples. We are experimenting with not just organic agriculture, but yogic organic agriculture. So yes, we are rolling up our sleeves and doing what we can. But what we found is that the motivation that happens when you really have that spirit of awareness within you, it makes a big difference. And whatever we do is for free, which is not so usual in today's world. But this is simply because we believe that sunshine is a gift from above, available for everyone. In the same way, spiritual knowledge must be made available to all, absolutely free of any cost. And so the work, for example, the R&D, the research and development we did for our solar system, our people have gone to other organizations who've requested, and they've just simply shown them how to do it. And that's without any charge, without a bill at the end of the day. So yes, it's important to do things in a practical way, but what's my motivation? Is it to serve? Is it to help? Is it to uplift others in whatever way it is? But it begins with that awareness within. Then it's not motivated by any selfish reason at all. So yes, roll up your sleeves, but first ask, am I doing this to satisfy my ego? Am I doing it for some money? Or am I doing it really out of love?
I don't know about you, but I was very inspired by the words that were shared by your fellow panelists, the language of emotional self-care that has come in even at this level at the United Nations. And, you know, you're the second in command of a large global organization, and here are you talking about taking care of yourself. And I wonder to what extent you feel there is a shift happening, because leaders and politicians often shy away from the language of emotional self-care because it can be seen as soft and weak. And yet what you're saying is that there is strength in that. Not only that, the world needs this quality going forwards. Do we have any hope for seeing change at that level amongst our leaders, that by taking care of ourselves, we take care of each other, and ultimately we take care of the planet?
I want to share a little story of what happened in Iceland just a few weeks ago in the month of May. And we have a program called Spirit of Humanity, which brings leaders from many, many different professions and backgrounds. And I see one of our people is also here, and she's on the executive committee. Glad to see you. We were in Iceland, and the president of Iceland had a very interesting statement to make. And she said this in public, so I'm sure she won't mind me repeating it to you. She stated that all the crises that we see happening outside are a result of what human beings have done. This is what we have done to ourselves and the planet. So who's going to take care of it? We've created it. We have to find solutions. But what we've been trying to do is find solutions outside. I believe that the answers are inside. We have to learn to go inside and find solutions. And a couple of years ago, the woman who was then Prime Minister, she is not that anymore, but she still came and shared in a very heartfelt way various experiences. But when she was still Prime Minister, again in Iceland, she spoke about how she recognizes the need for silence, and how it's the power of silence that is needed by every political leader. Now, if you've come to the point where political leaders are able to make these public statements, and you can see these interviews and various things on the website of Spirit of Humanity, but if people are able to make these statements in public, knowing that people are listening, I think that it's an indication that there may be many, many others who are on that same wavelength or are moving in that direction. And so my hope is that more and more leaders will recognize this and take the next step for themselves. They don't have to make public announcements, but take those steps for themselves.
The silence is a message that is coming through very strong and clear. And I get the sense that in a way that is your secret to your inner stillness that is clear to see. I'd like to invite you, if you would, to just share with us an insight into what you do when you go into your own moment of inner reflection. And perhaps if there can be any tips for things that we can also do to help find that point of stillness, either within ourselves or some other place, that we can really practice in our day-to-day lives, just for a few moments. I think it would be lovely. It's nice for everyone to experience what we're talking about as well as using words.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all for your attention. And just like we did earlier on, just sitting comfortably so that the body is relaxed and still, but the mind is alert. Both feet on the ground, preferably, so that the body is balanced. I let the body relax. I focus my thoughts on the inner being, the being of light. And in this awareness of the spirit, the inner being, I can feel that energy in the center of my forehead. I connect with the being of light that I am. I connect with the peace that lies within. Peace feels comfortable. Peace feels natural. Peace is who I am. As I become peaceful, I can sense the presence of the Source, the being of light, the Supreme, the Divine, the Source of peace, of love, of truth. And as my thoughts connect to the Divine, the rays of peace and love reach the soul. And the love that is within emerges. Connected with my own inner core values, connected with the Divine, I absorb the qualities from the Divine within myself, so that truly the creation reflects the qualities of the Creator. These are the qualities which are part of the being that I am. They are there, inherent within every soul. And in this connection with the Divine, they emerge and grow. The light emanating from the Supreme reaches not only me, but the entire human family. The light reaches out to the animal kingdom. So that they feel safe and secure. The light reaches out to all the elements of nature, nature itself, so that nature returns to a state of harmony. The light encompasses the entire globe and all within it. I hold this vision of a world of light, of peace, of justice, of truth. And I resolve to remind myself of this vision of a world of harmony each day, so that together we're able to make it happen with the confidence that yes, this is the way humanity can be and will be, with the power and light from above together, it can be a reality. Om Shanti. Thank you.